Okay, so what if there was like this one account out there, an account that, based on the stuff we're looking at today, some folks think might just be the most powerful financial tool you can get your hands on?
That's a big claim.
Right. Imagine putting money in, maybe not paying federal income tax or those FICA taxes on it, then watching it grow completely tax-free, and then possibly taking it out tax-free too. It almost sounds, well, too good to be true, doesn't it?
That combination, yeah, those three advantages together. It's definitely unusual. You don't really see that exact setup in most of the common savings or investment accounts people use.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are really going deep today on something that, on the surface, people often just think of as, oh, that's where I put money for my next doctor's visit, or maybe a prescription.
Right, just a simple health fund.
Exactly. But this stack of material you've pulled together for us, we've got official IRS stuff defining medical expenses, articles from finance experts, actual discussions from people using these things day to day. It shows a totally different picture. Some people see this account as way more than just health savings, maybe even like a key part of their whole long-term financial plan. We're talking about the health savings account, the HSA.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really interesting mix of sources we've got. We have the rule book itself, like IRS publication 502 for this year, which tells you exactly what Uncle Sam counts as a qualified medical expense.
The nitty-gritty details.
Exactly. And IRS Notice 2004-2, which clarifies some important how-to bits. But then we also have, articles looking at it from a financial planning angle, and maybe most importantly, those real-world experiences.
Right.
People talking about how they actually use these accounts, the hiccups, the benefits, stuff you just don't get from the official language.
And info from the providers, too, right? Like Fidelity, WEX, the companies that actually hold these accounts.
Yep, got some insights from them as well.
So our mission today for this deep dive is really to unpack what all this material tells us about the HSA. We want to understand those tax benefits, the triple threat, really, and then, really explore how, if you use it strategically, it kind of morphs from just a health account into something, bigger.
Like that super IRA idea.
Exactly, which is a pretty bold term. So we'll look at the rules, the possibilities that maybe aren't obvious, and the practical side of things. How do you actually do this? All based strictly on the sources we have in front of us.
Okay, sounds good. So maybe let's start right at the beginning, ground level. What exactly is an HSA according to these sources? And crucially, who can actually, put money into one? Who's eligible?
All right, let's break it down. At its absolute core, the sources say an HSA is, just a savings account. But it's specifically earmarked for health expenses.
Yeah.
Simple enough, right?
Even so.
But
right.
There's a gatekeeper, a really big one, a requirement you absolutely have to meet before you can even think about contributing.
And that requirement is being covered by a high-deductible health plan, an HDHP. This pops up everywhere in the sources. It's fundamental. If you don't have HDHP coverage, you can't put new money into an HSA, period. Even if you already have an account from a previous time, you did have an HDHP.
That HDHP connection is the absolute entry ticket for contributions. And, this brings up something the sources really stress. Don't mix up HSAs with those other health accounts with confusing acronyms.
Oh, yeah, like FSAs, flexible spending accounts, or HRAs, health reimbursement arrangements. They sound similar, but they're really quite different beasts.
How so? What's the main difference, say, with an FSA? Because a lot of people have those through work.
The big one with FSAs is usually that use it or lose it rule. You like to put money in for the year, and generally, if you don't spend it by the deadline, you forfeit it.
Right. Poof, it's gone.
Now, some plans have gotten a bit more flexible, maybe allowing a small rollover, like $500, or giving you a grace period, couple extra months to spend the money. But the core idea is still there. Spend it quick or lose it. That pressure is totally different from an HSA.
Totally different, because the sources are clear. With an HSA, that money is yours. It rolls over. Year after year after year, no deadline. It just keeps building if you don't spend it.
Exactly. And HRAs are different again. Those are usually funded by your employer, not you. They reimburse you for medical stuff, sure, but you don't control the funds in the same way. And critically, for this discussion, you typically can't invest the money like you can with an HSA. It's more like the employer's pot of money for certain expenses.
Okay, so step one, you need that high deductible health plan to contribute. And step two, remember, this is your money. It rolls over forever, and you can potentially invest it unlike FSAs or HRAs.
That's the key setup. Individual ownership, portability, unlimited rollover.
Got it. So now we know what it is, who can get in. Let's talk about the engine. the thing that makes this potentially so powerful, that triple tax benefit. This is where the sources really light up, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just one break. It's 3 layers of tax advantages working together. And that combination over time can be really quite something.
Okay, layer 1, benefit number 1. Contributions are tax deductible or pre-tax. This is the first win, right?
Right. So the money you put into your HSA, typically it goes in before your federal income tax is calculated for that year.
Meaning your taxable income goes down.
Exactly. Which means your federal income tax bill goes down.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Direct reduction.
But wait, there's something even better here, isn't there? Something highlighted in multiple sources, especially when you contribute through work.
Yes. And this is a big one that people sometimes miss. If you make your HSA contributions through payroll deduction, so it comes right out of your paycheck, you also usually save on FICA taxes.
FICA, that's Social Security and Medicare taxes.
That's them. For most employees, that's another 7.65% you save on every dollar that goes into the HSA via payroll. So 6.2% for Social Security up to the limit and 1.45% for Medicare with no limit.
Wow. So you skip federal income tax and Social Security and Medicare taxes on that money?
If it's done through payroll deduction, yes. That FICA saving is a pretty unique perk. You generally don't get that when you contribute directly to, say, a traditional IRA or even a Roth IRA outside of your work plan. Those contributions might be deductible for income tax, but you've already paid FICA on that money.
I remember seeing a user comment in one source. They were saying they actually checked their pay stubs and W-2 form, their 401k contributions. FICA taxes were still taken out, but the HSA contributions from their paycheck, no FICA withheld. It's a real tangible saving.
It absolutely is. It adds up quickly. Now, it's worth mentioning if you can't contribute through payroll, maybe you're self-employed or your employer doesn't offer it, you can still contribute directly to your HSA provider with, money from your bank account.
After-tax money, basically.
Yeah, right. And you can still deduct those contributions on your federal tax return, so you get the income tax break back. But you do miss out on that extra FICA tax saving you get with payroll deduction. So if payroll deduction is an option, it's usually the most tax-efficient way to go.
Makes sense. And there are limits, of course. You can't just dump unlimited money in. What are the numbers for, say, 2024?
According to the NADP source for 2024, if you have self-only HDHP coverage, the limit is $4,350. If you have family coverage, it's $8,750.
Okay.
And there's a little bonus if you're getting closer to retirement age. If you're 55 or older by the end of the year, you can add an extra $1,000 on top of those limits. That's the catch-up contribution.
Got it. $4,350 single, $8,750 family, plus $1,000 if you're 55 plus. Okay, that's benefit 1, the upfront tax savings. What's number 2?
Benefit number 2 is tax-free growth. This is where the long game really starts to pay off. Once the money is in your HSA, any interest it earns, any dividends, any capital gains from investments, it all grows completely tax-free.
No tax drag year after year. Exactly. This is massive, especially if you're thinking long-term, like for retirement. Compounding your money, earning more money, gets to work its magic without taxes nibbling away at the growth each year. Sources like Fidelity really emphasize this point. Investment gains inside the HSA aren't taxed.
And that can make a huge difference over, say, 20 or 30 years.
Oh, absolutely. One source had this example, just illustrative, of course. Investment returns are never guaranteed. But it showed someone putting in, say, $350 a month. If they just left it in a basic savings account in the HSA, maybe it grows to something like $134,000 over 30 years.
Okay.
But if they invested that same $350 a month within the HSA, thanks to compounding returns and no taxes on the growth, it could potentially balloon to something like $427,000 in that same 30 years. Again, just an example, but it shows the incredible power of tax-free growth over long periods.
That's a big difference. That tax-free compounding really sets the stage for using the HSA for more than just next year's dental work. Precisely. Which leads us beautifully into the third, and maybe the most unique, tax advantage. Tax-free withdrawals for qualified medical expenses. QMEs.
Okay, so this completes the trifecta.
It does. When you take money out of your HSA to pay for expenses that the IRS says are qualified medical expenses for you, your spouse, or eligible dependents, those withdrawals are completely tax-free. No income tax, no penalties.
So tax break on the way in, pre-tax deductible plus maybe FICA savings, tax break while it grows, tax-free growth, and tax break on the way out if it's for qualified medical stuff.
That's the triple play. It's unique to the HSA when used this way.
Okay, but the key phrase there is qualified medical expenses. What exactly counts? This seems pretty important.
Absolutely critical. And this is where IRS Publication 502 is our main guide, according to the sources. The fundamental rule the IRS lays out is that the expense has to be primarily to alleviate or prevent a physical or mental illness or disability.
Not just something that's generally good for you, like a gym membership or vitamins.
Generally, no. The IRS specifically says expenses that are just beneficial to general health don't count. So think standard medical care. Doctor visits, specialist fees, hospital stays, prescription drugs, dental care, vision care, like glasses or contacts.
What about getting to the doctor?
Yes, transportation costs primarily for and essential to medical care do count. You can track your actual expenses like gas and oil, or use the standard medical mileage rate the IRS sets each year. Even lodging, up to $50 per night per person can count if you have to travel away from home for medical care and stay overnight.
Interesting. What else is maybe less obvious?
Well, Pub 502 mentions things like payments for diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. It covers qualified long-term care services and even premiums for qualified long-term care insurance, though there are specific limits on how much premium you can count based on your age.
So some insurance premiums can be paid with HSA funds tax-free.
Yes, qualified long-term care insurance premiums up to the limits, and a few other specific situations we can touch on later, like COBRA or when receiving unemployment. But generally not your regular monthly health plan premium. The IRS list also includes things like stop smoking programs, certain capital expenses for medical care like installing ramps or modifying a bathroom for a disability, although the rules there can be complex, even legal fees necessary to authorize treatment for mental illness.
Wow, okay. It's pretty broad, but definitely focused on actual medical needs. What's explicitly out? What did the sources say? Definitely does not count.
Things generally considered cosmetic. So cosmetic surgery doesn't count unless it's needed to fix a deformity from an accident or disease. Teeth whitening is out.
Okay.
Veterinary fees are generally not qualified unless it's for maintaining a guide dog or other service animal for a person with a disability. Travel just for a change of scenery or general health improvement? Nope. Your daily commute to work, even if you feel unwell, doesn't count.
Right. It has to be tied to diagnosing, treating, mitigating, or preventing a specific medical condition, not just general wellness or elective stuff.
That's the core principle.
Yeah.
And getting this right is key to using that third tax benefit correctly. Tax-free withdrawals only apply if it's a legitimate QME.
Okay, so we have the triple tax benefit. Pre-tax in, tax-free growth, tax-free out for QMEs. This sounds great for paying medical bills, but how does this turn into that super IRA thing we mentioned? How does it become a retirement tool?
Yes. This is where the strategy gets really interesting, and it hinges on a specific feature of the HSA rules that many people, according to the sources, don't realize exists.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is deferring reimbursement.
Deferring reimbursement, meaning?
Meaning, when you have a qualified medical expense today, say, that $300 doctor bill, instead of immediately taking $300 out of your HSA to pay for it or reimburse yourself, you choose to pay that $300 out of pocket. Use your checking account, use a credit card, whatever.
Okay, so you pay the bill yourself, then what?
Then, and this is the absolutely crucial part, you meticulously save the receipt or proof of payment for that $300 qualified medical expense.
Become a champion receipt keeper.
Exactly. Because the IRS, specifically known as 2004-2 Q&A 39, one of the sources we looked at says something amazing.
Yeah.
There's no time limit on when you have to take a distribution from your HSA to reimburse yourself for a qualified medical expense.
Wait, no time limit. Seriously?
Not time limit. As long as the expense was incurred after you establish your HSA, and as long as you haven't already been reimbursed for it some other way or taken it as an itemized deduction on your taxes, you can reimburse yourself from your HSA for that expense anytime in the future.
So that $300 doctor bill from today, I pay it with my Visa, save the receipt, and I could wait 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and then pull $300 out of my HSA tax-free using that old receipt.
That's exactly what the IRS guidance allows, based on these sources.
Wow. Okay, my mind is slightly blown. Why is that so powerful strategically?
Think about it. By paying that $300 QME out of pocket today, what are you not doing? You're not taking $300 out of your HSA.
Right. You're leaving it in there.
Leaving it in there, ideally invested, to keep benefiting from that tax-free growth we talked about. That original $300, or rather the investments it represents, stays in the account, compounding tax-free for potentially decades longer than if you'd pulled it out immediately.
Huh. So all those medical expenses I pay out of pocket over the years, They kind of build up this invisible IOU for my HSA to me.
That's a great way to put it. Every dollar you spend out of pocket on a qualified medical expense after your HSA is open, and document with a receipt, essentially adds to a running total. A pool of funds you are eligible to withdraw from your HSA completely tax-free whenever you decide to in the future.
So you let the HSA money grow tax-free, and you build up this separate bank of documented QMEs that allows you to access potentially large amounts of that grown money tax-free later on.
Precisely. You maximize the tax-free growth by leaving the funds invested as long as possible, while simultaneously creating a way to tap those funds tax-free down the road by tracking your out-of-pocket QMEs.
Okay, that's clever. And how does this tie specifically into retirement, that age 65 thing?
Right. This strategy becomes particularly powerful when you look at the HSA rules after you turn 65.
What changes at 65?
The withdrawal rules get even more flexible. After age 65, you can pull money out of your HSA for any reason whatsoever, not just qualified medical expenses.
Any reason, like a vacation, a new car, just living expenses.
Anything. However, if you withdraw the money after 65 for something that is not a qualified medical expense, you will have to pay ordinary income tax on that withdrawal.
Ah, okay. So it becomes like withdrawals from a traditional IRA or a pre-tax 401k at that point if it's not for medical stuff.
Exactly. It's treated as taxable income in that year. But, and this is the really key part, if you withdraw the funds after age 65 to pay for qualified medical expenses, those withdrawals are still completely tax-free.
So even after 65, QME withdrawals remain tax-free.
Correct. So post-65, your HSA basically has this dual personality. It acts like a traditional IRA for any non-medical spending you want to do, taxable withdrawals. But it retains its superior status for healthcare spending, providing those tax-free withdrawals that you can't get from a traditional IRA or 401k.
Okay, now I see why some sources call it a super IRA. It's got the upfront tax break like a traditional IRA.
Or even better, potentially with the FICA savings.
Right. It's got the tax-free growth like both traditional and Roth IRAs. And then in retirement, it's either tax-free for medical bills, which are often a huge expense in retirement, or it's taxable for anything else, just like a traditional IRA. That combination is unique.
It really is. Let's compare quickly. Traditional IRA deduction now goes tax-deferred, tax later. HSA deduction now, plus maybe FICA, grows tax-free later for QMEs, or tax later for non-QMEs after 65.
Okay. And a Roth IRA.
Roth IRA. No deduction now, after tax money goes in. Grows tax-free withdrawals in retirement, generally after 59 and a half. The HSA gives you that upfront deduction FICA saving that the Roth doesn't, plus the always tax-free QME withdrawals, plus the traditional IRA-like taxable option after 65. The HSA really does hit all three phases of taxation advantageously if used for QMEs.
So how should people prioritize this? If you have a 401k match at work and maybe an IRA, where does the HSA fit in if you're using this investment strategy? The sources seem to have slightly different takes.
Yeah, there's some debate, or maybe just different perspectives based on individual situations.
Yeah.
Common recommendation is, first, contribute enough to your 401k to get the full employer match. That's free money, hard to beat.
Sure, don't leave free money on the table.
Right. After that, some sources suggest maybe maxing out a Roth or traditional IRA, depending on your income and preferences. Then use the HSA as this long-term investment vehicle, maxing it out if you can, paying current medical expenses out of pocket.
Okay, that sounds logical. Match first, then IRA, then HSA for investment.
But other sources, and particularly users who are very focused on potential future healthcare costs, which, let's face it, can be enormous in retirement, argue differently. They might say that the HSA's unique combination of the upfront tax savings, especially that FICA break, plus the guarantee of tax-free money specifically for future medical needs, makes the HSA potentially the best place for your next dollar of savings, even before maxing out an IRA, or maybe even before contributing to a 401k beyond the match.
Especially if you are disciplined enough to actually pay current medical bills out of pocket.
Exactly. If you can cash flow your current healthcare and treat the HSA purely as a long-term investment vehicle with that awesome tax-free QME withdrawal option later, the argument for prioritizing it becomes much stronger. It really depends on your income, your budget, how much you anticipate needing for healthcare later, and your ability to leave the HSA untouched now.
No single right answer, it sounds like. It depends on your personal situation.
Very much so.
Okay, so if someone is thinking, yeah, this super IRA strategy, this deferred reimbursement thing sounds compelling, what are the practical steps, the nuts and bolts? Because it sounds like it takes some effort.
It definitely does. It's not a passive strategy.
Yeah.
So first things first, assuming you're eligible with that HDHP, you need an HSA account. Choosing the right provider or custodian is really important here.
Why? Aren't they all basically the same?
Not at all, according to the sources. Some HSA providers might just offer a basic savings account, maybe earning very little interest. If your goal is just short-term savings for immediate bills, maybe that's fine. But if you're aiming for that long-term, tax-free growth,
You need investment options.
exactly, you need a provider that allows you to invest your HSA funds. Sources mention places like Fidelity, but there are others too that offer access to a wide range of investments. Mutual funds, ETFs, maybe even individual stocks and bonds similar to what you'd find in a regular brokerage account or IRA. Finding a provider with good, low-cost investment options is step one for the super IRA strategy.
And do they all let you invest right away? Or are there hurdles?
Sometimes there are hurdles. Some providers, as mentioned in user discussions, might require you to keep a certain minimum amount, maybe $1,000 or $2,000, just sitting in the cash savings portion of the account before you're allowed to invest any funds above that threshold. So that's something to look for when you're comparing providers, fees, investment options, and any cash minimums for investing.
Okay, choose your provider wisely, focusing on investments. What else? What about changing jobs?
Portability. This is a huge plus for HSAs. Unlike FSAs, which are tied to your employer's plan year, your HSA account is yours, personally owned.
So if I leave my job,
The HSA goes with you. If you switch to a job where you don't have an HDHP or you retire or just change health plans, that HSA account and all the money in it remains yours. You just can't contribute new money if you no longer have HDHP coverage. But the existing funds are yours to keep, manage, invest, and eventually use according to the rules.
that's great. So you don't lose it if your insurance changes. Can you move it between providers? Like if I start with one my employer uses, but I find a better one for investing later.
Absolutely. Because you own the account, you can move the funds from one HSA provider to another. This is usually done through an HSA rollover or, more commonly, a direct transfer.
What's the difference?
A direct transfer, often called a trustee-to-trustee transfer, is usually the easiest. The money goes straight from your old HSA provider to your new one. You typically don't even touch the money, and sources suggest you can usually do these as often as you need to.
Okay.
A rollover is where the old provider sends you a check. Then you have to deposit that money into your new HSA account within 60 days. If you miss that deadline, it could be treated as a taxable withdrawal with penalties. Also, these indirect rollovers are generally limited to one per 12-month period, so the direct transfer is usually simpler and safer.
Good to know. Direct transfer is the way to go if possible. Now, the elephant in the room for this deferred reimbursement strategy, the receipts.
Yes. The receipt challenge. This comes up over and over in the source material about using HSAs this way. It's the linchpin.
Because you need proof, right? Years down the line.
You absolutely need proof.
Yeah.
If the IRS ever audits you and questions a tax-free withdrawal you made, you need to be able to show documentation, the receipt, the explanation of benefits, proving that the withdrawal corresponds to a legitimate qualified medical expense that you paid out of pocket after your HSA was established and that you haven't claimed elsewhere.
So how do people actually manage this? Keeping receipts for potentially decades sounds daunting.
It requires a system. The sources mention various approaches people use. Some go old school.
Yeah.
Dedicated file folders may be organized by year for paper receipts and EOBs.
Okay.
Others go digital, scanning every receipt and medical bill, saving them as PDFs or image files. The key here is good organization, clear file names, maybe including the date, provider, and amount, like 2024-06-07 pharmacy45.pdf. Storing them securely, maybe in the cloud with backup.
Or spreadsheet.
Yes, spreadsheets are popular too. You can log each expense, date, amount, provider, type of expense, maybe a note about what it was for, and then either link to the scanned receipt file or note where the paper receipt is filed. This way, you have a running total of your reimbursement pool.
The key is finding something you'll actually do consistently year after year.
Exactly. Consistency and reliability are paramount. Because you might be relying on these records 10, 20, 30 years from now. It's the administrative burden that comes with this powerful strategy.
Right. No free lunch, I guess. Okay, so choose provider, understand portability and transfers, and nail down a rock-solid receipt tracking system. Are there any other, nuances or potential downsides we should cover?
Yeah, a few important points came up. One is state taxes.
We've been talking federal taxes. States can be different.
They can be. While that triple tax advantage generally holds at the federal level, some states don't conform to the federal HSA rules. Your state might actually tax your HSA contributions, or tax the earnings and growth inside the account, or tax the withdrawals, even if they're for qualified medical expenses.
Ouch. So that could take a bite out of the benefits.
It could.
Yeah.
You absolutely need to check the specific tax laws for the state where you live and file taxes. Some states fully follow the federal rules, others partially, and a couple, historically at least, didn't recognize HSAs favorably at all. One user mentioned their state. California only recently started conforming, I believe. So it's crucial to know your local rules.
Okay. Check your state taxes. What else?
Well, there's always the theoretical risk that the rules could change in the future. Congress could alter the tax treatment of HSAs.
Like they could take away one of the benefits.
Potentially. It's always a possibility with any tax-advantaged account, 401ks, IRAs, HSAs. Laws can change. But as the sources generally suggest, you kind of have to plan based on the rules as they exist now. Letting the fear of potential future changes paralyze you probably isn't the best strategy.
Fair enough. Plan with today's rules. Anything else? Premiums. Can I pay my regular health insurance premiums with my HSA?
Generally, no. That's a common point of confusion. Your regular monthly premium for your employer plan, or even an individual plan you buy on the marketplace while employed, typically does not count as a qualified medical expense for tax-free HSA withdrawal.
But you mentioned exceptions earlier.
Yes, the IRS Pub 502 lists a few specific ones. Premiums for qualified long-term care insurance do count, up to those age-based limits. Also, premiums for health coverage if you're receiving federal or state unemployment benefits, and premiums for COBRA continuation coverage after leaving a job. Those specific situations allow tax-free HSA withdrawals for premiums, but not your everyday health plan premium.
Okay, good clarification. One last thing. This whole deferred reimbursement, pay out of pocket strategy, it really only works if you can afford to pay those current medical bills without touching the HSA, right?
That's a really important practical constraint. If you have high ongoing medical expenses or just a tight budget, you might need to use your HSA funds right away to cover those costs.
And if you do that, is the HSA still worthwhile?
Oh, absolutely. Even if you use the funds immediately for QMEs, you're still getting significant benefits. You got the upfront tax deduction or free tax contribution, potentially with FICA savings, and withdrawal for that immediate medical expense is still tax-free. That's still hugely valuable compared to paying with after-tax money.
You just miss out on the decades of potential tax-free growth on that specific money.
Exactly. The super IRA aspect relies on letting the money sit and grow. If you need it now for healthcare, use it now. It's still a fantastic tool for managing current healthcare costs tax efficiently. The long-term strategy just needs to fit your current financial reality.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, let's try and pull all this together then. We've taken a real deep dive into the health savings account.
We started with the basics. It's a savings account for health costs, but you need to be covered by a high-deductible health plan, an HDHP, to contribute. And it's very different from an FSA or HRA.
Then we unpacked that really unique triple tax advantage, Benefit 1. Contributions are pre-tax or tax deductible, and crucially, if done via payroll, you often save on FICA taxes too.
Benefit 2. The money inside grows completely tax-free. No taxes on interest, dividends, or capital gains year after year. Huge for long-term compounding.
And Benefit 3. Withdrawals are completely tax-free and penalty-free as long as they're used for those qualified medical expenses, QMEs.
Then we explored the game-changer strategy, deferring reimbursement, paying today's medical bills out of pocket, saving the receipts meticulously.
Because the IRS says there's no time limit to reimburse yourself later from the HSA for those past expenses. This lets you leave the HSA funds invested to maximize that tax-free growth for potentially decades.
Which turns the HSA into potentially more than just a health account. Combined with the rule change at age 65 allowing taxable withdrawals for any reason, while QME withdrawals remain tax-free, it starts to look like a very flexible, powerful retirement tool. Hence the super IRA nickname from some sources.
But it requires effort. Choosing the right provider with investment options, understanding portability and transfers, and, most importantly, keeping incredibly detailed records of all your out-of-pocket QMEs.
That receipt management is key. And we noted potential wrinkles like state taxes and the fact that the strategy works best if you can afford to not tap the HSA for current bills.
So the actionable takeaway for you listening. If you have access to an HDHP, take a serious look at the HSA. Don't just dismiss it as a minor perk. Check out your employer's options. Do they contribute? Do they offer payroll deduction for those FICA savings?
And research HSA providers. Look beyond the default option. Find one with good, low-cost investment choices if you're thinking long-term. And start thinking about whether paying medical bills out of pocket now to let that HSA grow is feasible and makes sense for your financial goals.
And maybe, Start that receipt filing system, like today.
Couldn't hurt.
All right, final thought to leave you with, building on all this. When you really consider the long-term impact, decades of tax-free compounding, plus that incredible flexibility in retirement for both healthcare and other needs, how significantly could making the HSA a priority, using it strategically, actually change your journey toward financial independence and long-term security?
It's definitely something to ponder. For the right person in the right situation, the sources suggest it could make a very big difference indeed.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on health savings accounts. Just a reminder, everything we discussed today was based purely on the source materials provided for this dive. It's for informational purposes and isn't financial or tax advice tailored to you.
That's right. We always encourage you to talk with a qualified professional, a tax advisor, a financial planner, to understand how these rules and strategies might apply to your own specific circumstances.
Until next time.